Today we're looking at the next age group up, and it's going to be our 8-year-olds up to sort of teenagers. And I'll, do a typical example of like the 12-year-old, 12 going on 13, going on 30. So do you want to just reflect for a moment? How comfortable are you with that age group? Who's going, give me a 4-year-old any day, or a 6-year-old, and who's going, nah, give me the 13-year-old? Like, I want you to picture yourself now walking through a high school. It's recess and they're all out. Who's like scared? Anyone? Yeah, Danielle, you'll go yes. Yeah. I was doing some keyword signing with one of the people in our signing choir. Janine knows, that was Zoe Caitlin, and she was finishing up high school, and she said, Jane, could you come? It's my graduation. And could you come and do a little signing song with me? I'd just love you to support me. And I said, oh, yeah, sure, that's fine. And I knew that Zoe was in an area of the school where it might have been a group of, say, 15 to 20 of students. So in my mind, I went, great, I'm going to a room in a school. There'll be 20 students. There'll be maybe 1 or 2 teachers. And when I got there, Zoe goes, oh, it's this way, and I'm following her, and then I went, where are we going? And she goes, oh, it's the main school assembly. I'm like, oh, really? Yeah. And it was 1,100 high school students, and I had to stand up on this stage, and it was hot. It was like 1 o'clock in the middle of the day. They were all in the sun, and I had to get up and engage 1,100 high school students and get them to sign along to this song. And I was absolutely petrified, and I was like, oh, they're all going to boo me off, or they're going to turn their backs on me. So I just had to go full bore, and it actually was really successful. And I even had some Year 9 teachers come up to me afterwards and go, those Year 9s never do anything, and they were signing when you told them to. So what I'd say with this age group is push through your fear, whether it's one or a group or a lot of them. And just remember that they're just like everyone else, aren't they? They want attention. They want help. Yeah. They might be a bit embarrassed. They're probably not going to be as easily impressed. So, Ali, with your little kids, I'm sure they just think the world revolves around you and the other adults, and they're so impressed. Yeah. But then we know who's got teenage kids. Danielle, you've got teenagers? Yeah. What are your kids' ages?
Sorry, I've got a 17-year-old and a 19-year-old.
Yeah, okay. So you've been through that. And Janine's got, I'm not sure if it's like 19 and 21 or something around that age. Yeah. Yara, do you have children, Yara? Are you able to unmute?
Sorry, I had that on mute. Not yet, no, but I have nieces and nephews that I'm teaching at the moment, so I'm helping them with their
what ages. Yeah, and what ages are they?
Between 2 and 6.
Excellent. And are you more comfortable with the younger age group, Yara, or do you like the 12 and 15-year-olds? Or
actually not comfortable with teenagers at all. Just it's either adults or kids as young.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So that we go into that sort of zone, don't we?
Yeah, that's right.
Where we go, just avoid that for a while. What about you, Lisa? Right. What age groups are you comfortable with, Lisa?
I suppose adults are like, and I can do I suppose across the board, but my experience with teenagers is it's most challenging to engage them and have that level where they think you're cool. But you don't want to be friends with them either, It's a really
So Janine said one-on-one, I love tutoring teens. So that's great, Janine. And I'm the same. So I wonder if Janine and I have both tapped into something there, which is, pushing through your fear. And you sort of do want them to think you're cool, but you can't get too caught up on that, because then you can end up going down a slippery slope. But one of the things which I think is important to talk about especially for those of you that are a little bit apprehensive, is you don't have to work with this age group. So you might never work with this age group, and today you just might be more just interested in listening. But if you are going to work with this age group, yeah, is to recognise that it is a bit different. And Janine's put there, different when they're in a group. Yeah, that's the key, isn't it? So you don't want, you could go to the kindy and go, oh, someone's got a turn to come and play with me. And they'd be like, oh, I'm so lucky. But yeah, turn up to a year 5 class or a year 8 class and go, oh, I'm here to see so-and-so to work on speech. You're just going to get the death look. And then that person's going to be, yeah, and jeering them and everything. So it's a whole different approach, isn't it? But once they're on their own, I find they're just like anyone. I take stickers and stamps and I go, oh, they're probably not going to want these because they'll be a little bit, oh, you're babying me. So I'll just go, oh, I've bought my stamp today. Yeah. You don't have to use it. It's right. I just sort of like doing it. And I've yet to find a teenager that doesn't go, oh, I'll do that. If there's no one around, they'll do it when there's no one around. And also if there's not pressure put on them. So yeah, you can have a good time with this age group. But let's have a look at just a starting point. So I'll bring up a booklet and you would have seen the sounds in the topic 7 video, and then you would have read the handout. But let's just have a look. Let's just explore just a little bit further in the handout here. And I'll just close that. So first of all, down at number 3, how long does it take for therapy to work? So obviously, if you're working with an older child or a teenager or even a young adult, it means that they've had that habit for longer. So it's a good argument for not leaving it that long and really trying to get in at the early intervention stage. But then it's also around, once they're a bit older, the reason they might have a speech error is because they don't have good coordination. So I've called it in the second paragraph, articulation agility. So if they just haven't worked it out for themselves and their errors are persisting beyond 8, we might find they struggle with words like, say, enemy. They might say, oh, the enemy. Or hospital, they might say hostable. And if we hear those kind of things in those slightly older children, we might go, oh, okay, just sequencing and coordination might be hard. They might have a learning disability. So I've put their learning abilities. So sometimes the older children, they could be in a support class, or it might even be undiagnosed. They've just been that little bit slower than other people to learn. And so we really want to make sure that we're giving them time, processing time and thinking time. But we just sort of can't assume either. Like they might come across as, oh, we think there's a learning difficulty, but when they're one-on-one, we might find out, no, actually they're really switched on. They're just not engaged or they're demoralized. So we want to look into that. And then application to task. And that's the big one, isn't it, with the teenagers? Because, how do we make them do anything, really? They're really coming into a time in their life where we can't really make them do it. So that would be the first thing. And I'll just stop the share for a sec. So the first thing would be, once you go into this older age group, is to really stop and think, have they got a realistic attitude to this? Have you got a realistic attitude? Has the parent or carer got a realistic attitude? And the other thing on that handout, which I think is a good discussion point, is who gets to choose? So you might have read that. Would you all agree that a 4-year-old can't really ethically choose? You could say the 4-year-old, you can't say k. You're calling a car a tar. People are misunderstanding you. Would you like to work on that? You're not going to have that conversation with the 4-year-old, are you? You're just going to go, oh, we're going to work on these sounds. And that would probably extend up to like your 6 or 7-year-olds. But what about your 10-year-old that can't say thumb, that says thumb? Are we just going to say, oh, you can't say thumb, you can't say that th, we're going to work on that? Or by the time they're 10 or by the time they're 12, are we going to say to them, have you noticed you can't say that? How do you think you'd approach it? You can just be thinking about that. So I will always start with, from about 9 or 10, I will say, are there any sounds that are hard for you? Could you count to 20 for me? And then, were any of those sounds a bit hard? And I find they normally know. They'll normally go, oh, yeah, I have trouble when I get to 7, like if they said 7, Or, yeah, I think some people, you know, tell me that I go fix. So they often know. And then if they do, that's a great starting point. So be ready to be honest with this older age group and think about what you would like. And then obviously if they're 15 or 20 or 25, then for sure you're going to chat openly about it with them. And it can be really interesting to hear what they've got to say. In the handout, I talk about who gets to choose. And you might find yourself in a situation, particularly with the high school students. Let's say one of you ends up one day supporting someone in a high school, and you know the teachers have told you come to this class at this time, and you've spoken to the parent. Oh yeah, no, that's great. And you know, maybe the payment's been sorted and everything's great. And Janine, you might be thinking about this with your tutoring, but then when you go and get them, they're like, no, I don't know why you're here, no one's told me. And you don't even know if that's the truth. But maybe nobody did tell them. And then you'll be going, oh, okay, well, you know, if it was tutoring, oh, I'm going to work on your English skills. But if it's speech, oh, you know, I've heard that is a bit hard for you. You know, when you try to say 3, it's more like we. And then you might get them go, they might respond with, yeah, I don't care about that. And you're like, right. So I suggest when they're older, you know, if you're working in with the speech pathologist, ask, are they motivated? Do they want to do this? And if the speech pathologist is sort of a little bit removed, you know, ring the parent and say, have you told them that I'm coming? Or I sometimes like to have the first session with the parent and the teenager, and then I actually make the teenager the centre of attention. And Janine's written there that teens realise they're insecure, and they are. You know, they're insecure about, you know, if they've got pimples, are they getting armpit hair? You know, they don't want someone telling them when you say that sound, you don't put your tongue in the right place. Like suddenly they're really self-conscious, aren't they? So I'll run a session and I'll make it all about the teenager. And I'll try to find out, what are you good at and what do you like? And try to get them to be the one to bring it up, because I want them to see that I'm sort of in their corner. Can you imagine that sometimes you get some quite tricky situations? Like I've had it where the teenager goes, yeah, I don't really care. And then the mum or dad, I had a dad once and he was going, no, this is why we have private health cover. And, you know, when you go for a job, you need to be speaking clearly, and you just need to do this, mate. You just need to do this. And I'll be sitting there going, and then I'll always side with the teenager, but I'll try to take the other perspective too. And I'll go, oh, right. Yeah. What do you think about Dad's point? You know, do you think that's right? And the key thing to get across here, and as speech pathologists, you know, we learn this at uni, is there's this zone, I'm using the word zone again, but from about 12 to 14 through to about early 20s, the client doesn't want to do it. It's okay to say to the parent or the carer, I'm going to take the pressure off you. I know you want to help them, just like you want them to keep their room tidy or not take drugs or not speed. But actually this is now their body and speech is coming from their body. And I'll do my best to explain to them why it's a good idea, and I'll persist for a while. But if we end up at the point of they don't want to do it now, it's okay. You haven't failed in your parenting duties. You've offered them this and we've taken some time to tell them, but actually we have to wait until it's important to them. So yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? And it's a little bit different. And I find in most cases, they will come around and they'll say, yeah, okay. And just one thing to remember if you're keeping notes is to say to the teenager, why don't we just try it? Could we just try it for like 2 or 3 weeks? And then at the end, if you tell me, Jane, I don't want to do this, that's cool. But, you know, maybe you don't even really know. We could have a lot of fun, you know. And so, yeah, just sort of think about that. Janine, you're listening. Have you got any tips you wanted to come on and share? You could type them or you could come on and speak about. I'm sure you have teenagers that come in for tutoring and they're like, this is the last place I want to be. Have you found there's a way to engage them?
Because of the situation with tutoring, I don't really find that so much, because it is a one-on-one and usually their parents have spoken to them first and been through it. But I do tend to always in the first session with the older kids, even from the end of high school up, I do go through what do you feel that you're really good at and what do you feel you could do with some help with. So
yeah, excellent. Yeah, thank you, Janine. And so you can see what Janine's doing is she's sort of getting them into that yellow zone, isn't she? And that's what we've got to do. But when we're scared of teenagers, you know, we might be scared just having to walk across the school grounds. You know, you're worried you're going to get dragged into the toilets and, you know, whatever. We're so much in our red zone that we forget that it's still the same process. And, you know, let them talk about what they're good at. Spend 10, 15 minutes rapport building. And then if you do, and you get to help a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old or an 18-year-old, it's going to be so rewarding, because teenagers are just amazing. You know, you can have really in-depth conversations and they can say really great things. I had a 15-year-old who I worked with who had a lisp, you know, and I remember her coming out with things and sort of saying, oh, wish I'd done this sooner, you know. I just didn't want to do it, and I was told, yeah, that's okay. But I really like, Jane, how, you know, you just said, come on, let's try it, and now it's so good, you know, and I feel less conscious. And I had one girl who I worked on a similar sort of thing, but it was a stutter, and she came to me and said, oh, guess what, I got up at, you know, the assembly and I spoke, and it was just amazing. And, you know, you get this really lovely feedback from the teenagers. Yeah, so we're looking at a whole general range of ages. We're actually talking about the 5 to 8-year-old sounds. So it might seem a bit funny, you know, talking about teenagers, but actually these 5 to 8-year-old sounds, and I'm just coming down to them here, these are what we call the later developing sounds. So the later developing sounds, I'm just going to take that back one. These are the ones that tend to be the problems for people that are older, because they develop later and therefore they sometimes get overlooked and they never kind of get corrected. And if you go into a support class, and we're going to talk about support classes next week, if you go into a support class and you have young people and you have teenagers who have an intellectual disability or autism or some sort of disability, it might be Down syndrome, they often have these later developing speech errors, and everyone's kind of like, oh, well, at least we got all the earlier sounds right. And I find they're often just left, and it's like, oh, it doesn't really matter, because most of these don't affect clarity that much, like in terms of being understood. Like the teenager who says, oh, I'll have 3 of those, or thanks, you know, people understand them. But I just wanted to let you know my personal approach is I offer the same level of therapy and expectation to everybody. So I'll work on these later developing sounds with all people, regardless of their ability or whether they have a disability, because I think, you know, everyone deserves a right to speak clearly, and then therefore to be listened to by others and thought of as being mature and being clear and being articulate. So I think it's important that you tune your ear in and go, oh, I've just heard that person and they're 12 and they've got a lisp. And you might think, I wonder if anyone's ever said, would you like help with that? So you've obviously got to be tactful how you go about it, but just start thinking about that. And it could even be an adult that you hear. Do you want to just get your booklets if you've got them there? And you know what we do with this one. Do you want to just quickly find the sounds? I'll sort of do it with you as we go, because it won't take us long today, and I'll just be talking about them. The V is already circled. So by 5, we should have V correct, rather than it being stopped to B. And can you see S and Z have appeared again, even though they were there earlier? So I'm actually, look, I'm going to circle S and Z, because really by 5 to 5.5, there might be a slight lisp, but we're going to help them if it's a really yes. And we're like, whoa, I can see that tongue. And then definitely by 6 to 8, there shouldn't be lisp anymore. So you might have like a 9-year-old nephew and they're still saying, yes, please. And you're like, wonder if I should say something about that. It can be tricky, can't it, when it's family? And then and this has come up a lot, should be correct within that 6 to 8. And we go back up the top then and we find our THs. So these are some of the sounds that, yeah, can persist. And then we can also get, people can mock or tease. And if any of you watch The Big Bang Theory, you might know Barry Kripke. And he not only can't say the and says what, which you know is gliding, he also glides on the l. So that's not, I'm just hovering over it. So he actually talks about, like really, he says where we, I'm where we. And if you watch Big Bang, you'll see that he's being mocked for the way he talks. And there's a famous scene in there about where he says that Siri doesn't work on his phone. So he goes, yeah, Siri, it's hopeless. And then he's calling it Siwi. And he goes, Siwi, you know, where's the Westerwant? And Siri's going, what is Westerwant? And he's going, not Westerwant, Westerwant. And, you know, it's making fun of that speech error. So I think we should be helping everybody with these errors. Stop the share. We have to be mindful of two things. One is that for TH can sometimes be an accent thing or a regional thing, and I mentioned that in the video. So if you have a child who's say 12 and they're saying, oh, I've got 3 of them and thanks, and I'm with my brother, I don't ever jump straight in. I actually like to speak to the parent, because then the parent might come on and go, oh, hi, thanks for seeing my brother. And then you're like, right. And then you can investigate, and it can be a family thing. So I once wanted to help my daughter's friend, and she had F for TH, and so did her brother. And then I met the parents, and so did her mum, and so did her dad. So then I was in a dilemma. So I sat down with the mum and said, look, I'd like to help your daughter with the sound because she's showing an aptitude for drama, but I'm really aware that you all use F for TH. And the mum said, oh no, I really want you to help her because I don't want her to have the difficulties that I've had. So then I got like the green light to do it. So that was great. But that mum could have said, oh no, we don't care about that thing. And then it could have almost been a little bit offensive, couldn't it? If I'd taught her daughter and then her daughter's coming home and then the daughter might start correcting the mum. Yeah, so there's just a few things to be mindful of. So that's the first one. And then the second one is that if someone is saying a d instead of a th, that's not something that we could ignore or put down to as a late sound. So I'm going to bring up the whiteboard and show you what I mean by that. Ali, in your school, this would be a really good one for you to be thinking about. Go and have a listen. And it's really fascinating, the TH, because we have like, thank you. And your 3 and 4-year-olds are probably saying thank you. And that's fine because that's typical. And then we might have the voiced th. Can you think of some words that use that? The ball is red. They won't play with me. I bet you hear that a lot. And what's really interesting is 4-year-olds normally have the voiced TH correct. And I can't even really tell you why this is. I'm so fascinated by it that when it's the ball and they stick their tongue in the right place. And the 4-year-olds are going, the ball is red and they won't play with me. But when it's the thank you, instead we get thank you. Just trying to, sorry, be technical here. This one is changed. So the voiceless is changed to the f, but the TH voiced is correct. And I kind of want to go, if you can put your tongue out for voiced, why can't you put it out for voiceless? But that just seems to be what happens. But have a listen out, because what happens sometimes is this. Sometimes they'll say, the ball is red. The ball is red. Or they won't play with me. You all get a sense of, you might have heard that, they won't play with me. Now, when they're doing that, what's the process? What's the error? They changing to day. Does anyone want to type in the chat what you think that is? What? It's not an F to TH substitution. What is it now? It's not voicing because the is already voiced. Anyone think of what it is? Sorry, getting a bit technical here. It's stopping. Can you see that? They haven't got the fricative. So we don't mind if the 3-year-olds say, they won't play with me, and the with would be with. They won't play with me. So Ellie, you're the one that's got all the little tykes running around you. Go and see which of them are saying, they won't do that. They won't play with me. Look at de ball. But by 4, most of them will actually change to the correct TH. Sometimes they'll change to a V at the start. So they'll say, they won't play with me. And at least then, what have we got? We've at least got the fricative now, haven't we? They won't play. They won't play. So we're not so concerned about that, although that doesn't happen very often. Usually they get it right. And by 5, they'll have the voiced TH right. But the voiceless might be as late as 8. So do any of you think that that's a bit strange? I really do, yeah. So if in our articulation chart where we've said, you know, if they're still saying thumb for thumb or thank you for thank you and they're 7, we're not calling it a delay. Well, if they're saying de ball at 7, that is a delay and that does need intervention. So don't be too caught up about, oh, how will I remember that? Because remember, you're not going to have to diagnose and prescribe the programs. But I just wanted to point that out so that you're aware of it, so that if you get asked to work on TH with a 5-year-old and you're thinking, well, that's a bit early, isn't it? Maybe it's because they're stopping the TH. Yeah. And if you have some 4-year-olds, Ellie, in the preschool that are going, they won't play with me, then model the fricative just in your everyday conversation. Oh, they won't play with you. Oh, I will speak to them, and just let them hear the long fricative sound. Okay, yeah, I don't know why that is. One day someone will tell me why the voiced is easier, and then the voiceless, they stick to the. It could be to do with how it sounds. If I say and it's so hard to hear the difference, isn't it? So I think that's why that might persist, and I've put that on the video too. So hi to Keita. Keita's joined us. Fantastic, Keita. Feel free. Some people have got their videos on today and some people have got them off. So feel free to do whatever is comfortable, Keita. And we'll go back to our booklet. So we've finished our page 2. Page 3 is, you're probably recognizing that now, that each time for each age category, I've gone, what are the typical errors? And therefore, what are the typical programs? And if any of you do get to work with the older age group, and it could be someone that has a disability, or it could be an adult now who is working on some sounds, we find that an adult that's had a stroke, or an adult that's had an accident, or an adult with a disability that's persisted, it tends to be these later developing sounds. So these would be programs I would expect a lot of you would actually use. And so what I'm going to do is just have a look at that first little conversation. How cool am I in my new sunglasses? And then I'm going to have a look at Simon at the bottom. And because that's a little bit unclear, you're probably better off just, you know, looking at that in your downloaded booklet. But I'll bring up the whiteboard and I want to think about the word sunglasses. Can you try saying sunglasses and think about how many fricatives are in it? Oops. Sunglasses. And now I'll make some spaces. Sunglasses, just so that we can look at each part. Sunglasses. Sunglasses. Now I want you to stick your tongue out and try and lisp it. Sunglasses. Sunglasses. So when someone has a lisp, and this is something that we're typically looking at for these older children, it's going to be something you might work on. They won't just lisp, say, word initial position, but be fine word medial and word final. If they've got a lisp, they just tend to have a lisp. And then when you start to work on it, you choose one word position, and they might just be a little bit better in that word position and still lisping in the other places. But usually what happens is they'll get it and it will transfer to the other word positions. So we would normally work on the lisp in word initial position because we can see it. Fun, and then glasses. So we would actually, if we got them to say sunglasses, we're going to say, yes, correct. And that can feel a bit weird because we're ignoring the other errors. And in this case, the other errors are the other word positions. Get the idea? It would be overwhelming if we said you've got to get your right in every word position in a word like sunglasses, wouldn't it? Can you try and lisp on it? Sunglasses. So that's what it feels like for you changing it in 3 places. So if you want them to say sunglasses, then you're asking them to do a really complicated task. So just be aware of that. But also I want you to think about the fact in sunglasses, which of the fricatives are voiced and which are voiceless? In sun, what have we got? We've got word initial position, and that's voiceless. And then might just move it all up. Sorry, I never know how to get back into my thing. There we go. And then in sis, what have we got there? We've got like word medial position, which is voiceless. But what's the last one? Says. Can you hear that we've actually got z in word final position, which is voiced? So we've got sun, glasses. And there's that example, and we've talked about this before, haven't we? That in a final position, that might be voiced. So now when we ask the client to stop lisping on sunglasses, they've actually got to stop lisping on voiceless and voiced. So it's really complicated. It's really hard for them. And lisps do take a long time to work on. So that was the first thing I wanted to point out. So if you get asked to help someone with a lisp, we're talking months. I worked on my daughter's lisp because she was a thumb sucker. And I knew it would take ages. And I started at 3. Now you're going on the articulation chart. Jane, why did you work on a lisp at 3? Okay, I'm a speech pathologist. She had every other sound right. And I went, I'm just going to take my time. And I worked on it. It took 9 months. So I worked for 9 months. And by 3 years and 9 months, she had it. But I just wanted to demonstrate that it would have been silly at 3 to put pressure on her. So I really took my time, and we just talked about the cage and the snake, and we spent ages just being able to go. So if you get asked to work with an 8-year-old or a 12-year-old or even a young adult on a lisp, just take your time, just reassure them. And remember that a lot of people that age, they do give up. And some of them go, I don't mind that I have a lisp. Can you all think of a famous person with a lisp who's maybe used it to her advantage? Ita Buttrose. She has a lisp and she's kind of well known for it. And, you know, maybe it's part of her identity. So sometimes someone will say it's part of their identity. But I like to start working on the lisps at sort of 4.5 and 5, but saying to parents, this isn't a delay, so there's no pressure. But when you're cleaning your teeth, how about we just smile and go, and I'll just work on the sound in isolation for months. So Ali, in your preschool, you know, you could just get your kids that are going, you could just get them to say, can you make a snake sound? And got to have your cage closed. And know that if you're helping 4-year-olds to say correctly, then down the track when someone goes to them, you know, it's not fixed, they'll be able to do that because they've at least learned that in isolation. Yeah. And any of you that are working with older kids or adults, Lisa, do you work on, do you know if that's one of the sounds that you work on?
There it is, but it's probably more his liquids, I'm realising now.
Yeah, more like the l's and the ers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, but if you end up working with someone else and it's a lisp, yeah, just realise that this is one that you can take a long time over. So you don't come in and go, great, we're going to be going up and down the hierarchy today. You might spend 3 months on auditory bombardment and in isolation. And you won't even move on until you can actually get, because some people, can you all try pushing your tongue against your teeth so hard that it distorts? So the first thing that they've said is this, and you say, no, close your teeth, and now try pushing too hard. You hear it? And it doesn't work. And that's because what we actually do is we take the tongue off the tiniest bit. So there's this tiny little gap. And if you've ever seen a gas leak, it can leak out the tiniest spot, can't it? Do you think this sounds like a gas leak? So you are having the ability to pull your tongue back just enough to let the air out like a gas leak to get that sound, but not so much that it goes back to a shh, and then not so much that it forces the teeth open to it, or a distorted sound altogether. So some people just can't go easily. Here's a little technique on how to help get that hissy sound. So can you imagine you're the client? I want you to close your eyes. Just got someone in the house. I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to hear a gas leak coming out of my mouth, and just listen to how it sounds. Okay, open your eyes. Did you hear a sound just like a gas leak? Okay, can you close your eyes and close your teeth and try and make a gas leak sound yourself? Off you go. You might have to make it really soft, really gentle. Might be a tiny gas leak. And let them experiment around. And one day when they get the whistly sound and you hear it, like it might have been, and then they go, that was it. That was it. You got it. And then just allow them to have a few weeks of just being comfortable so that then they can go, and that's all that's needed with a lisp. And while you're doing that, you might be working on another goal. Okay, so you don't try and do a 6-week program on a lisp. You have, maybe you're working on and you do a little bit of in the session and a little bit of okay, and your job's to be there reassuring them. Okay, we don't know how long speech therapy is going to take. We're not going to say to them, oh yeah, if we work on this lisp, I reckon we'll go through the hierarchy, we'll do 1 step a week, so I reckon by 12 weeks you'll be right. Well, it's unethical to tell someone how long it'll take, because we don't know, because it's applied science and everyone's different. We don't want to set them up. And I need to be honest with you, you know, it's quite a high dropout rate because it's hard. But you can say to them, look, I don't know how long it'll take. And you might even get to the point where, you know, you need a break. But what I can tell you is I'll help you and I'll encourage you. So think of your role as being there with them. Okay. The other one I wanted to just show you is what it looks like when someone has all of these later developing errors. And this can happen too. Janine, you've got some older children that come in. I'm not sure if it would be your kids that are having tutoring, or it might just be teenagers, and some of you might be around teenagers. And this is what it sounds like when someone has all of these later developing errors. And you do see this, especially in a, say, a support class in upper primary or in high school. Are they stopping the V? They might be stopping the TH to D as well. The is gliding to W. The S and Z are both lisped. And then the TH, even though we know they can say th, because when they lisp, they go th, the TH is going to th or v. And when someone comes in like that, you really need to go, right, which one's easiest for them? Which one matters to them? Maybe one of the family members' names has one of these sounds, and you just work through them systematically. But this is how it would sound. I'll say it to you without the errors. Hi, I'm Simon. I'm really excited to finish primary school, but I'm still going to visit my speech pathologist to help with my sounds. Now I'm going to have a go saying it with the errors, and then I'm going to put it up clearly for you to have a go. Hi, I'm Simon. I'm really excited to finish primary school, but I'm still going to visit my speech pathologist to help with my sounds. Would you agree that someone that speaks like that, people are going to make judgments about them, aren't they? So it's a bit unfair if we don't give them a chance to work on those errors. But would you agree you can sort of understand them? And that's why I think sometimes it's overlooked. But let's have a look. I had it primed ready. So yes, great. Share. Okay. So do I just have to get that? How do I get that off? There we go. Oh, it keeps wanting to put the play thing. There we go. So do you want to have a go where you are now and just read through it and see if you can say it with the errors? And notice that I've put the bolded letters, like for school, I've actually written school, because remember we talked about it is a g in school. Have a go reading through that. Of my 3 people I've got on screen, I've got Liesl, Danielle and Ellie. Do any of you want to try unmuting and reading it? You don't have to, but you can push yourself a bit if you want. You're all going, no. Yeah, it's hard actually, isn't it? Yeah, Liesl, are you going to have a go?
Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
Hi, I'm Simon. I'm really excited to finish primary school, but I'm still going to visit my speech pathologist to help with my sounds. It's very tricky.
Yeah, that's, you do. Yeah, and I'm glad you raised that point, because when people have all of these speech errors, they tend to have all this saliva. And, you know, can you imagine they've got the speech errors that's up against them. Now they've got the saliva. They might have an intellectual disability. They might have something about them that shows other people that they, you know, have some challenges or some disabilities. And it's all just painting this picture of difficulty with communication. Yeah. Liesl, did you raise your hand?
Yeah, I was thinking before that when you said about intellectual disability, because I was thinking if someone is speaking like that, there could be an assumption that their intellectual, that their intellect is at that same level.
Yeah, that's right, because it reminds us of like the 4 or 5-year-old, doesn't it? Or the 6-year-old. And you would be amazed, and I've helped people to learn all these speech sounds, and they can do it. They just need a bit longer. And then I've seen people interact with them more and take them seriously and interact at a more appropriate level. And it really is life-changing. So I would say everybody should have equal right to at least have a trial of an articulation program. Yeah. What do you think about that, Danielle? You've been listening to that?
Yeah, with all these sounds, which is a little bit off what you're asking, I recently had my niece and nephew here, who my niece is about to turn 4 and my nephew's, 6, and they've been recommended to get a speech assessment for the niece because she lisps. I was able to show the parents, because the parents are quite concerned in their area. It's quite expensive to have speech pathology, which they're going to find challenging. I was able to show her that a lisp isn't necessarily something that needs to be worked on as a 4-year-old from your articulation chart, and it may have just be something that sorts itself out. But I was just thinking about telling them about the cleaning the teeth, just to help work on that. But she works for hearing places, and just even that communication barrier with people who can't hear properly. And it would be very, very similar for people who can't necessarily articulate as clearly as others. That way they, you know, they feel that barrier in life. There's enough barriers around without adding that when they've got the opportunity to do something about it.
Yeah, thank you. So some great comments there, and really good demonstration of your new knowledge and how you were able to reassure someone, which is great. And then you're thinking about it's almost preventative, isn't it? With the 4-year-olds, if you're cleaning the teeth, and that's preventative speech pathology. And, you know, that's part of our scope of practice as speech pathologists, is get out and educate people about things you can do to prevent difficulties. So I'd love to see all preschools in that final year transitioning to school, everybody helping with the teeth together. So yeah, I'm not sure if you just heard the last part of that, Ali. Danielle was just saying with her 4-year-old niece, you know, has a lisp, so she was able to reassure the parents of, it's not like it's a delay, she might outgrow it, but now Danielle's going, but I could give them some tips like with the cleaning the teeth, and that comes into our preventative way. And how satisfying for someone like you, Ali, at your preschool to think, well, if we're getting them ready for school, you know, transitioning to school, like, can they get their own shoes on and off? Can they unwrap their lunch? Can they hold on for the toilet? You know, can they close their teeth? It's actually preventative speech pathology then, and it's pretty easy, isn't it? You know, it's just a quick little thing, and they would love it. Let's all pretend that our tongue is a snake. Let's close the cage for the snake, and everybody go, right, off we go outside. You know, that took 20 seconds, and then what would happen? You'd get those kids that would come up and go, excuse me, Ali, watch, my snake's in the cage. And there'd be kids that would come up then and volunteer doing it. So yeah, we can have the pressure off and we can have fun. And then the other aspect of what we were just talking about, you know, where we're looking at, do people have judgment? We do sometimes meet people and they don't have an intellectual disability. They have just normal intellect, but they have all of those speech errors. And then, you know, what if they came into a shop or they came into an office and they started to speak? So I know, Danielle, I'm not sure if you're at the reception, but at a place where you work, do you think if a 30-year-old comes in and says, oh, I'm here for my appointment, and starts talking, if they had all those later developing speech sounds, do you think you're forming an impression, or you're trying not to form an impression? It stands out, doesn't it? So yeah, what do you think about if an ABC newsreader came on? If an ABC newsreader came on and had W for R and F for TH and lisped, do you think there would be people ringing up, hey, you've got someone on that's not clear? So we do actually, as a society, have an expectation about speech sounds. And so I will always advocate that everyone should have equal access to work on these later developing speech sounds. And if for no other reason, it's like what Liesl said, is because there's just saliva going everywhere. And, you know, imagine being an 18-year-old and you want to date, and then, you know, and your partner's off put by it. Please kiss me sweetly. And they're like, will you put your tongue away? Yeah, so we're advocating for the upcoming dating age. Yeah, excellent. All right, booklet. This next page is in your handout that you can write in. So if you want to just get that ready. And for most of you doing this course, we possibly didn't have to have the little checklist here because I think you have a clear idea. But we've got Keita on today, and Keita, this probably is a good little checklist for you, because sometimes we're like, well, what is my role? And your role might be that you're doing the programs, but your role might be that you are supporting other people that are doing the programs. And even Ali, your director, who's agreed to you, who has agreed for you to do this course, you know, she might be interested in this course one day because she might have you and other staff that have this knowledge, and she would be like, well, I would like to know what they know, because actually it's all about community, isn't it? And building our skills and knowing. So that's why I've got this in here, because sometimes I've had people come on and do the course and they never work directly with any clients. But what they do is they supervise the people that work with clients. They're sending people out, you know, can you go to that home? Can you help the family with finances and with relationships? And while you're there, can you check how the speech sounds are with the younger children? Because, you know, we're a bit concerned. And we want the people that are in the supervisor role, or someone like Keita, who's, you know, her role is encouraging her workers. We want her to understand what's involved. And can you see down the bottom the 4 arrows? Before you go and work with someone, before Liesl goes off to work with her client, she needs to have a plan. And that's going to take time, isn't it? So Liesl wants Keita to understand, I'll need some time to plan this, Keita. And then that's valid. Ellie, you know, if you're going to do some of these things, I'm sure your director's going to say, Ellie, would you like half an hour to, you know, go and sit and do some photocopying and think about what you're going to do? So people need to understand that planning is important. The second point there is observing and analysing the client's response. And so it's really good for a supervisor to be able to say, oh, do you want to tell me how you went today? How did the client go? That's what observing and analysing means, isn't it? Not just going, oh yeah, I went and helped them with the program. Oh great, how did they go? Yeah, I think they got it. Well, that's not very clear, is it? Much better if you can go, oh, well, they got 8 out of 10 on the first one, and then they got 6 out of 10, so I dropped back. Oh, right. We want the supervisors and the managers to understand, you know, there's some pretty high level skills going on here. There's some pretty good work going on. Just having a look, we've got a chat that's come up. Okay, no worries. And the third one is about moving up and down the speech hierarchy. So we want everyone who's involved to realise when you go to do that articulation program, you're going to be thinking, well, have I come in at the right level today? I think I need to make it a bit easier. I think I need to make it a bit harder. Ellie, your director might have gone, yeah, have some planning time. She might see you come out with all the ideas. And then she might go, oh, Ellie, you're not doing what you said you were going to do. Now, if she'd done the course or understood about it, she might go, oh, Ellie, I can see what you're doing. Yeah, they could already do that. You've gone on to the next step. Fantastic. Well done. So it's this understanding of the speech hierarchy. And then the last one is about contingencies. So then this is where Ellie's come out, you know, maybe even, what's your director's name, Ellie? So I just keep saying the director.
Emma. Her name is Emma.
Yeah. So let's say Emma's gone, oh, Ellie, guess what? I've brought in this fishing game for you. Yeah, I spent ages last night making it. You can use it with your speech sounds, okay? And you're like, oh, great. And then you're using it and you realise it's not working. Maybe the magnet means that the fish keeps falling off and it's distracting. And you're like, I need a contingency. And then you see Emma walk past and she's like, Ellie, why aren't you playing with my game? I spent 2 hours on that game. You know, and it'll be good if she understood that actually we don't persist with things that aren't working. Get the idea? So do you want to just have a quick look at that? And the first question is, I need to deliver an articulation program. I've put, it has been provided by a speech pathologist, but it could also be that it's a program that's come from somewhere else, but it's around speech. Are you doing this course? So this is for you. Tick my own child if any of you here are actually helping your own child, because you can tick more than one spot. Is it a child in my care? So that's for your childcare workers. Is it a student in my classroom? I think Yara, I think you're working with the school age, so you might be ticking that one. Is it an adult? So that would be Liesl, wouldn't it? Some of you, Janine, you might be a number of those. Or I do not work directly with anyone. So Keita, you might go, oh, well, I think that's me, because I'm not really working with anyone, but I'm learning these skills so that I can support my staff. But then Keita, you know, in a week or two, you might go, oh, I'm now helping a friend's child. So then you might go, well, I'd tick a child in my care because, you know, they've allowed me to do that. The second point, I assist or supervise other staff members. And the first one is, do you assist or supervise someone who delivers the articulation programs? So you could tick that. Do you work like as a centre director in a preschool, you know, caring for preschool children? Get the idea? Do you want to just go down and tick which one you think applies for you? If you're not responsible for supervising anyone, just tick that bottom one. In the future, you might be. Yeah. And then our third point, I play a role in organising or recommending referrals. So Danielle, this is where, you know, before where your not sure if it's your brother or sister, but you're talking about your niece, and they said, oh, you know, we're thinking about referring to a speech pathologist. Well, in a way, you were in that process, weren't you? And some of you definitely have a role where you're going to advocate. I'd like to speak to the parents now, and I'd like to talk about it. So who are you involved with? Or is that something that's not really you? And Keita, in your role, that's definitely fitting you, isn't it? Because you're looking at all sorts of supports for the person that you care for. So I just wanted to show that there's quite a broad reach for this course, because it's about doing it yourself with your own child. It's about helping other people. And then it's also about supervising and advocating for clients by understanding the role of people that work directly. Okay, those 4 arrows, we're now just going to look at those in a little bit more detail. I've put here the flow of the session, and we talked about the 4 arrows, having a plan, observing the client's responses so we can see how they're going, moving up and down the hierarchy, and using the contingencies. If we don't think about all of those things, then the session might not flow. Stop the share. And this is where I think with this course, I've kind of tried to go to a new level that often isn't explored with people like yourselves that are trying to learn. And what that is often you just get given a program, and it might not be because the speech pathologist is being negligent or not thinking about it. It might just be that, you know, time is so limited. So I'll use you as an example, Lisa. You know, if Ashley has gone, can you work on these sounds, and here's a program, she might have given you lots of lovely detail, and that might be sort of all the time that she had, really, because, you know, she's got lots of clients. But when you come to actually use those resources, if the session doesn't flow, then you end up not using the resources. And so these steps today about having a plan, about monitoring what's going on, about being ready to move up and down, and about having contingencies, those are the things that mean this wonderful plan from Ashley can get used and can be effective. I'll just give you an example now that you'll all relate to, and that would be leaving the house. So think about when you have to leave the house in the morning. It might involve children for you. It might involve pets. It might involve parents. But what happens when things are flowing? You can get out the door on time, and you probably had to plan for that. You know, I had to have milk in the fridge so that everyone that needed milk for their breakfast could have it. All right. I had to make sure the car had petrol so that I could leave at a certain time and I could get where I'm going. I had to make sure there was pet food or cat litter. So think about the things that allow it to flow and recognize you do have a plan, and that's why it works. And then think about the times when you don't have a plan and the whole morning gets derailed because of one little thing. It could just be there's no milk or the milk's off, and then suddenly it's like it's World War III. All right. And you're like, I had everything else right. So this is what can happen in a speech pathology session. If you don't have a plan and you go in, it could just be one thing. Like it could be, oh, I'm sure that this child likes the movie Frozen. I'm sure they do. I'll bring something with Olaf on it. This will be great. And you walk in and they go, oh, that Frozen movie, my little sister plays it all the time. Get that away from me. I hate it. And you're like, my whole session is based around Frozen. Okay. And now you can't use all the great resources. So that's just an example. You could extrapolate that to something else. With an adult, it might be, you know, you came in and you went, you talked about politics or something, you know, about Donald Trump, And then they just get so enraged and you never can get them down. But if you had a plan, you might know from a previous session, don't bring up politics. And then you read your plan, you're in a bit of a hurry. Remember, don't bring up politics. Oh, that's right. Okay, I'll talk about the weather, or I'll talk about something I bought on at a shop. So this is why we need a plan and why we need to think about the flow. And the really interesting point here is, if you are the one delivering the articulation program, then you are responsible for the flow. The speech pathologist is responsible for the diagnosis and maybe telling you what step in the hierarchy, and maybe even responsible for giving you the cards or whatever. But if they're not there, they can't manage the flow, can they? And I think this is where a lot of articulation programs and intervention get unstuck, because the speech pathologist has the right intention and they pass on the information and they go, can you please go and do the program? And this is happening in schools and preschools. It's even happening with parents. They'll say to the parent, can you do these sounds at home? Here's your home program. And the parent doesn't understand about the plan and the flow and the stepping up and down. And they come in and they sit down with the child and go, right, let's do those things that Jane taught us. And then the child goes, I'm not doing them with you. I only do them with Jane. And the parent's like, oh, okay. Now we know that they need to get that child into the yellow zone. But if the parent's caught off guard a bit, they might go, it might put that parent into their red zone, you know, don't you want to do it with me? So then they might be, well, I can do what Jane did. I can make it fun. Do it with me. And then the child's picking up on their red and black, aren't they? So then the child's, no, I'm not doing it now, Mum. I'm not, or I'm not doing it now, Dad. And again, if there was a plan in place, the parent might go, oh, okay, Jane said this might happen. Let's go for a walk outside instead and let's jump on the trampoline. And the parent's thinking, contingency. But without the plan, you get this battle, and then the parent ends up going, fine, don't do it then. And the parent walks away, and then you know what happens at the next session? Oh, hi, yeah, sorry, no, we can't come to speech therapy today. Yeah, I'm not feeling well. But actually, it's the parents now embarrassed because they couldn't get the child to do the activities. There was nothing wrong with the resources that were sent home, but the flow didn't work. So I like to really address this and really kind of reassure you. Does that make sense? Yeah. Can you all think about when your flow got derailed? Yes, Ellie, have you got something to say?
I was just reflecting on, we've been talking about that a little bit, not necessarily with contingencies, but since COVID, we've seen a lot of kids that are now getting speech therapy over Zoom. So they're not actually going into sessions. And we've got a few other ones who are getting NDIS funded to have speech therapy come to the service instead of the parents going. And I've noticed the change in the way the parents kind of do their homework. I think, I don't know, half the benefit of having the families there is kind of teaching them how to do it, like teaching them how to engage and how to like, I don't know, break it down. It's not as hard as what you think, and play this and just do that. It's modeling that play skill that I'm finding is a little bit lacking, because it's I think that modeling is half the beauty of, especially with young children, like it's teaching the parents how to do it.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And when we can have a parent there and they can not only see us do it, but we involve them, we teach them and we give them feedback, they're much more likely, aren't they, when they get home, to have the skills. And we're going to talk about that a lot in topic 10. But I'm really glad you've brought that up now, because that's this idea of the flow. And I've seen, you know, children and adults get into full-on arguments because the parent will go, you just said tar instead of car, and they'll be like, no, I didn't. And then it just becomes about who's right. But when we have the parents in the session, we have to teach them that that's not how you go about it. And the same with you, you know, the first time a client says something, like I had a client once climbed under the table and said, I hate you, Jane, I never want to see you again. And it really sent me straight into my red. and I wanted to cry. And I went, hang on a minute, this is a 6-year-old child. And I went out and saw the teacher, you know, and they said, oh yeah, he's having a bad day. He's just saying that to everyone. And I was like, right, okay, it's not just me. And I was able to keep going. But that stopped me in my tracks. That stopped the flow. The best way to be able to recover is to have a plan. Because when you have a plan, you look at your plan and your plan goes, you know, if it's not working, do this. If it's not working, do that. And sometimes it's just, if it's not working, say, let's go outside and play on the swings. You know, that could be in your plan. Yeah. And people that look after little kids know about that, because little kids just derail everything all the time, don't they? You know, you go, guess what? I got you this lovely drink. And they'll go, I didn't want a blue one. And then you're like, no, you wanted a blue one last time. Yeah, but today I want a red one. So yeah, sorry, it's just making me laugh because it's just so funny. Have you seen those videos on YouTube, like things kids say? And, you know, there'll be like the kids having the tantrum and then the person's typed the comment, you know, so it might be like, he's crying because the sky's blue and he wants it to be green. And those of us that can step back and go, that's just developmental, that's okay. But you can imagine the parent that doesn't see that, and then they just get into an argument about it. That the child will always win, won't they? Yeah. Yeah, thanks for all your comments, everyone. So I hope that this is making this course just that little bit different from other things that are on offer, because when we take time to think about this, we're ready. And, you know, you are responsible for it working. And like someone like Danielle, I don't want Danielle to go, great, I've done the course, I've got the resources, I've got the instructions, and she sits down and you're so excited, and then just something derails it, and then you're just so dejected. But if you've got a plan, you go, great, Jane said this would happen, and I wrote it down and I do this. Get the idea? So you can read through that top bit in detail, but I just made this little illustration because I think sometimes pictures really help us. And these are the sorts of things that I would expect you to be doing as you get ready to write your plan. You know, should I use stickers, stamps, or counters? And that would be, last time they loved it, I made a note of it. Or, no, last time they said I hate stickers. But I'm even going further than this. Have you ever got stickers to work with a child, and then the stickers, there's something weird about the glue, and each sticker literally takes 30 seconds to a minute to take off or tears? Like I had a session once, and every time I pulled a sticker off, it broke. And the session just totally derailed because the child was that one like, I want to do it myself, I want to do it myself. And we wasted about 15 minutes just trying to get these stickers off. And then I could see the mum or dad looking at me going, I'm paying for this. And I'm like going, oh no. And I kept saying, it's all right, we'll use different stickers. No, I want those stickers. So then part of my plan is check my stickers. Stickers are great, or stamps are great, but check them. I once turned up with a box of self-inking stamps. Great, you know, none of them worked. And the child was just so upset. So my plan now includes, before I go in, I get my stamps and I do one go of each one and make sure they're working. What if he runs out the room again? Do you know a great one for this is sit by the door, position yourself by the door so that if they try to run out the room, you're there, and, you know, make yourself wide. So you can actually do all these things and you're thinking about the flow. You're probably thinking about what happened the previous time and, okay, this is what I'm going to do. That's all right. I've just had someone come in. I could just hope for the best. Do you think sometimes that's our plan? 5 o'clock in the morning, you wake up, oh no, there's no milk. Everyone's going to want cereal. I could get up now, go down to that 24-hour survey. No, it'll be all right. I'll just tell people it's toast. And then World War III breaks out. Hoping for the best didn't work, did it? I wouldn't suggest that you just hope for the best. The bottom one, I'm going to plan for lots of rewards and little breaks. Yes. The client that, you know, just couldn't settle, the flow didn't work, you felt really dissatisfied at the end. Next time I'm going to say at the start, look, we're going to do 6 lots of things, and in between we're going to stand up and have a stretch, we're going to put on a song, we're going to jog around the room, and we can get our drinks out. And at the end of the session, you go, that was the best session ever. And the parents nodding and everything worked because you took time to plan. So it needed time, didn't it? It needed time. Coming around, I'm going to research some ideas. Yes. And if you're a supervisor listening to this, support your staff to have some research. You know, things aren't working. We're only getting 15 minutes into the session and then we're having to stop. I'd really like to research by talking to other people or going on the internet, seeing if I can get more out of the client. The supervisor's there. Yep, take the time you need for that. What set him off last time? I need to avoid that. You know, if you have one of those moments, then, you know, sorry, I went rip because I'm remembering someone who just hated what I took so much and I couldn't de-escalate him. So I went, look, I'm ripping them up. And I ripped up all the things he didn't want. And then I made a note, don't ever use that again. What did he enjoy last time? Sometimes we don't stick to the things that work because we're bored. I don't want to do that again. But if they enjoy it, and this could even be you, Lisa, with an adult, if you have an adult and they want to talk about the same thing every time, then do it. You can put up with being bored for a bit. If that's going to work, if that means the session will flow, if every time it's talking about the same thing, but you meet your speech goals, that's okay. And at the top, is it okay to start with a game? So yes, it's okay to start with a game, but what's the but? Have you ever like gone to someone, let's play a game, and then you realize you don't know how to play it? Well, you can't have that at the start of a speech session. And this really catches people out. They'll go, great, I got this game. And then you're trying to play it and you can see the parent going, yeah, we're paying for this. And, you know, 5 minutes, you haven't even got the box open. And then you go, I thought there'd be instructions. And then the kid realizes, maybe it's the 12-year-old realizes they've got the upper hand here. Yeah, I know the rules. Yeah, I'm allowed to do it this way. And you're like, oh, no, I'm not. And now what was meant to be just your rapport building has really upset your flow, and now you're feeling panicky because you've got all those resources from the speech pathologist. You haven't even got them out yet. That's not what a game's about. Okay, so practice on your games. Go for those games that you go, guess what, we're going to do this game, and actually we're just going to do like 2 moves each, and then we'll bring our speech cards in and like we'll say our sound and then have a move. Then we'll say 5 sounds and then have a move. So now the game's really appropriate and you're still getting the speech stuff done, okay? So don't just go, I'll do any game. And I used to have this marble game, and you know, there was this one boy once and he wanted everything lined up perfectly and he didn't like the way I was connecting the pieces. I could get it together in like 30 seconds. We could have 2 minutes of balls rolling and then straight into speech. And he was like, no, it's got to be yellow next. And that one's wobbly and I want it over there. And it became this battle. And so then my plan had to be that we'll do it at the end. The session had finished. While I was chatting to mum and photocopying, he could play with it because he wouldn't come to speech without it. Like he just had to have the marble game. But we had to wean him to having it at the end. So you can see how the plan's important, isn't it? And remembering what you did. So that's what that page is all about. And when you go back and read over that, you'll just be able to remember that conversation. For the next 3 pages, I've done them in quite a lot of detail. So again, I think it's something you can go back and read over. And what's useful in the topics is for me just sort of giving you this extra little bit of information. But I've basically got those 4 arrows now, and I've put the first 3, having the plan before you start, the second arrow, observe and analyze the client's responses. We've been doing this. This is what we were looking at in topic 4 and then since then about the percentages. Moving up and down the speech hierarchy. We've been doing that too, haven't we? So if you are feeling like, oh, Jane, you've given me more information, there's more to learn. Actually, no, we're just starting to tie it all together. Okay. The first one though, go back to having a plan. That's what the supplementary item is this time. And it's actually a sheet where you can write down what's in your plan. When you have a look at the supplementary item, it will have the plans that you can download, and there's also a little video about how to use the forms, and there's examples and everything. Because some of you might not want to look at that yet because you're like, well, I'm not really doing the programs yet. I'd rather wait and revisit that. And some of you might be ready to use it straight away. Okay, so that's what that page is about. And our new information today is the fourth arrow, which is the contingency planning. We have already been talking about contingency planning and thinking about it, but here we're just looking at just a little bit more detail. And I just wanted to point out with contingencies, we know there are plan B, could be our plan C or our plan D. But I just wanted to point out a couple of things, is that a contingency is an alternative to your main plan. So remember that when you write down on your piece of paper or you get it in your head about your contingency, you're not planning to use it. It's just a backup. So I wouldn't make contingencies something that take you an hour to make because then if you're not likely to use it, and that's a good thing, then you're kind of disappointed, you see. So your contingency would just be something that worked before, that is quick and simple, and it might even be a couple of things. Contingency, for example, with the stickers would be, I know that they want Thomas the Tank Engine stickers, but those are a bit hard to get off. So I'm going to say, I'll take the sticker off and I'll pass it to you. And then your contingency is a different sticker if the child insists on getting it off and they're ones that are easy to get off. Okay, so that's what I mean by an example there. Contingencies are important because we can't force a client to engage. And that's what this is all about, isn't it? Just like if you've run out of milk, you can't force someone in your family to have toast when they wanted Nutri-Grain. You can't force someone to like what you brought. Now, your plan hopefully is really good. And as you get to know the client, like Lisa, as you go work with your client, you probably know what they like. You're probably really good. You nail it every time of getting the right thing. But when it's a new client, you know, sometimes it takes quite a few weeks to find out what they like. And there's no good persistence. I had a session the other day and I wanted this client to talk about these particular pictures. And he's a young man with Down syndrome. And I said, would it be okay if we look at these pictures? And he went, no. So I just went, okay. And I didn't use the pictures. I wanted to, but I went, what would you like to do? And he goes, I want to type sentences. So then I said, okay. Is it all right if we type sentences about mum and dad? No, about me. Okay. And I had to go with him. And by following him, he engaged. The third point down, children in particular respond to things that they like and enjoy. And this is a really interesting one. And I'll just turn it off because I know what's on there. The last 2 points. Some parents don't think it's valid that their kid has to like everything. You know, life's tough. There might be the teenager who's 15. We're here for speech therapy. You know, come on, just get on with it. And to some extent, that's true. But if you could plan to do something they like and get the same outcome, well, why not do that? You know, so that might be part of your rapport building and part of your getting to know the parent and demonstrating that, well, yes, life is hard. And once you go out of this room, it's hard. But one of the ways I'm going to make speech therapy effective or this articulation program effective is I'm just going to keep this teenager really happy. So if this teenager loves dirt bikes, then I'm just going to do everything about dirt bikes. You know, and you can find stuff these days on the internet, can't you? And so the fourth point that I've got there is about, don't think of going to a contingency as giving in. You know, they're just so fussy. I brought a particular thing. Why can't they just get on with it? It's because they're so fussy. And you've got to be tempted not to say, it's like with the little kid, you know, with, I don't want a blue drink, I want a red drink. Well, if you go, no, you're having a blue drink, you know, it can start World War III. If you just take a moment and go, oh, did you want a red drink? Yeah, red's really nice, isn't it? Do you like red and you wanted the red drink? I'm sorry I bought the blue drink. What could we do? We've got the red drink. Red, that makes me think of apples. Do you like apples? What if we said it was an apple drink? Could we pretend it's an apple drink? And next time, could I get the blue drink? Would that be okay? And you could remind me? Do you think you're more likely to get the 2-year-old to now go, yes, and drink it? So we acknowledged it, didn't we? We didn't go, oh, stop being such a fusspot. It's the red drink or nothing, you know. So in a session, if you go to your contingencies, just try to notice if you're getting triggered or if the parent who doesn't understand the planning is getting triggered, and just reassure them and just go, you know, it's really fine that they don't want to do that. Don't tell them I spent 2 hours making it. It's really fine that they don't want to do that. I've got something else here and I know they'll like this one. You know, so verbalize what you're thinking, keep yourself calm, tell yourself it doesn't matter. Afterwards, you can find someone else that appreciates what you've made and play that with them. Yeah, try not to think of them as fussy, and it really does happen. And, you know, can you think of a situation where it's like, say, if someone said, come to the movies with me, you know, you probably would through a movie, but wouldn't it be nicer if you found a movie that you both liked rather than, you know, one of you not enjoying it? Yara, you've got, I find this way works best for under fives, especially with the tantrums. Yeah, well done, Yara. You're right. We acknowledge how they're feeling, don't we? And then they'll come round, but sometimes we don't give people time to come around because we're trying to force them to engage or to have something. So your contingency, I've put here, think of your contingency as learning about what makes the client switch on. That's all you need. You've got that program. Your job is to go through those, you know, R pictures or TH pictures. And really, it doesn't matter what you have to do. If what you needed to do was be outside on the trampoline with your favorite song going, jumping up and down, and each time you've got a rule that each time you land, you call out a word beginning with if that works, then that's a great contingency. So I put, having a well thought out contingency plan will boost your confidence. When they go, I don't like it, you won't panic. You'll be like, well, I have a plan B and a plan C. So that's why we want to plan. And another one of the supplementary items is a form all around the planning and some examples of how to fill it out. And that will also have a little video that goes with it. Therefore, you can look at that now if it's relevant now, or you can just know that it's there for the future. If your brain's like, yeah, I think I'm getting full, Jane, you don't have to digest it all straight away. Page 8 is just some more of my examples around what I mean these contingencies when it's to do with rapport building, reinforcement, and rewards. Because this isn't the actual speech activity, is it? This is just about the flow. This is about the flow. It's what helps them to come and get settled. It's what you do when they are producing the correct sounds so that they feel rewarded. You know, it's the stamp or the sticker or just the comment, oh, well done, you're doing so well today. It's about the little breaks that you're going to have. And I'll be honest with you, some of my best speech pathology sessions that go for half an hour, only 10 minutes of it is speech pathology. Only 10 minutes is on the sounds. 20 minutes is on relationship, breaks, getting that person to trust me, letting the parent debrief. But I get 10 fantastic minutes and some change, and those clients leave going, that was so great. And I could compare that to 30 minutes of just do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. I'm not listening to you. I want to do this. It's all about me, the person delivering the program. And when they walk out, I'm like, great, they did so much. And in the car, that parent and that client are going, that was ridiculous. I'm not going back there, because actually it wasn't effective. So can you think about that, your rapport building and your reinforcement and your rewards, almost the non-speech stuff? I think that's even more important, and that's what will make you better at delivering an articulation program. And the person will want to come back and see you. You know, they'll go, oh, Liesl, I love it when you come, you know. And that really just is so important. Here's those little examples here of, like, this is your top stuff, this is your plan. This is your plan A, and you're ready and you're organised. And then here's your plan B. You just have a few things there as a backup for your confidence, and so you can switch. So when you have a look at the supplementary item, you'll see that kind of structure. Your plan at the top, and then your little ideas at the bottom. Okay, so there's a lot to an articulation program, isn't there? there's more than just, you know, what words start with and I think sometimes if you do like just a 3-hour session on how to work on articulation, it has to be all focused around, we're working on and these are some words that start with but I find it's all that other stuff, and in particular the relationship. So I hope that you've enjoyed today. When we do topic 8, we're going to look at what it's like to do an articulation program for someone that does have an intellectual disability or is in a support class or has a speech disorder. We're going to talk about dyspraxia, which is one of our disorders. And things are a little bit different because now it's not following typical development. So next week we'll feel a little bit different. And then when we go into module 3, we're going to look at how we can use keyword signing as part of all this, and that can be really effective. And then we're going to look at how do we maintain the sounds and transfer the sounds into everyday speech so that the person not only improves their speech, but they maintain it and they use it and other people start to notice it. So we've still got some great topics to come and keep consolidating. Feel free to stay on the end now if you have any direct questions, if you want to talk about your quiz or about how everything's going. Otherwise, I'll say goodbye and I'll see you next week in topic 8. Bye.